All right. Wow, I can echo. Test. Let's try that. Hmm, getting an echo here. Oh, there we go. That was the problem. Sorry, guys. I was getting an echo because I was on another line here. Okay. So, I was like, why am I getting an echo? All right. Welcome to today's call. So, here is the quick breakdown that I'm going to do today. That's probably going to maybe last 10 minutes in this video. So, one of the things I research into is, when are we going to hit the top on Bitcoin or MicroStrategy? And, research based on past analysis is always just past analysis. So who knows if it'll ring true, but it's always nice to look at data and what happened in the past. So I want to look at some data of what happened in the past and some indicator charts that may be helpful in looking at the top of MicroStrategy or Bitcoin in this bull market. So I'm going to look at that with you here in just a moment. Okay. But remember, first thing first, this is not financial advice. It's only for educational purposes only and should not be considered financial, legal, or investment advice. Just me sharing my opinion with you. Okay. So, with the actual markets, I'm going to share with you a chart right now that shows you a couple things in terms of MicroStrategy or Bitcoin hitting a top. And I'm going to show you a Bitcoin chart. And we also know that as Bitcoin goes up, MicroStrategy, Bitcoin move to a certain degree in step together. Obviously, we have times when Sailor taps the ATM and MicroStrategy will go down and maybe Bitcoin will go up. But overall, as we're looking at the 5 to 6 months or 7 months left in the bull cycle, we have to be looking at, how is Bitcoin going to move? And based on how Bitcoin moves, MicroStrategy is also going to move as well in the grand scheme of things. So I did some research looking at like the 350-day moving average of Bitcoin and then the 111-day moving average of Bitcoin. And there's a nice chart that's an indicator that kind of shows you, whether it's at a top or not. Now, don't take this as the gospel. Don't take this as like 100% true, but it's just a chart to look at that has predicted some past tops in some of the bull cycles and has shown that this chart has been pretty accurate within 5 to 10 days each time of predicting the top. Now, based on the research that I've done on this and looking at it, it's like you don't really want to look at it per se as predicting the top, but look at more from the perspective of, is the market overheated? And a market being overheated would mean that people would be selling. And so as I look at it right now, it does not look like the market is overheated. Now, obviously, we just had the jobs reports come in and you saw Bitcoin drop a little bit from the jobs reports, but they don't report the jobs reports accurately anyway. So I wouldn't put much stock in that right now. The markets always react to this type of stuff, but I wouldn't put much stock long term in this having an impact on Bitcoin. So let's just look at the chart. And the chart I'm going to show you, if you want to write this down, I always feel like it's easy when you write something down and then just the basic things that I'm going over here. And the basic things that I'm going over are two things. One, there's a 111 moving day average of Bitcoin. And the 111 moving day average is about $92,000 in terms of the moving average, right? So if you look at the last 111 days, that's the moving average, 92,000. And then there's a 350-day moving average of Bitcoin. And the 350-day moving average of Bitcoin is about $72,000. Okay. So this chart, which is based on something mathematically, it's called a pie chart, right? And the reason it's called pi, if you remember from like grade school, like pi is like 3.14 or whatever mathematically, and so this chart is based on kind of like these pi metrics. So if you divide the 111-day moving average into the 350-day moving average, you get about a 3.14 factor. So the chart was derived from this basis of the idea of pi. And so it's called a pie chart indicator that I'm about to show you. But the basic simple that we need to know is not to get into the math of it or get into all the jargon of pi, but the basic understanding is that this has been helpful in the past to look at the top in the 2021 cycle, the top in the 2017-18 cycle, the top in the 2013 cycle. It's been helpful to look at this chart. So as I pull it up right now, I'm going to show it to you, and you need to know two things. Again, write it down. Number one, look at the 111-day moving average of Bitcoin. And number two, look at the 350-day moving average of Bitcoin. Okay. And those two indicators can help us see whether Bitcoin is at a top, which would then be an indicator to see whether MicroStrategy is at a top. And the news that I'm sharing is that we are not at a top. Okay. And it doesn't look like we're close to a top either, which is a good thing because we want it to run up to 150, 180, 102,000 in this bull cycle, right? So Jeff has a really good question. I'm going to stop on that. Jeff says, what is the point of Saylor pointing to Bitcoin per share as a major indicator of value for us if he continues to move the goalposts and dilute again and again in the future? So just to answer the question on Bitcoin per share, if you look at what that actually does, when he issues more shares, the Bitcoin holdings are going up by more than the dilution of the share issuance. And so, it's going up significantly more. So in terms of him executing this strategy over the course of the last year to issue more shares, that's what gets you more Bitcoin per share. And that's also what has driven it's also what has produced the returns for MicroStrategy and made it a super lucrative stock. Okay. So while there's news that people say, well, he's diluting the shares and temporarily it trades and keeps the price sideways on things, when he's doing it, it's actually super accretive for the shareholders. So it's kind of one of these things that seems counterintuitive because you dilute the shares. That's bad for the shareholders. It's actually very good for the shareholders. Okay. And it's also very good because they're acquiring more Bitcoin, and because they're a Bitcoin treasury company. Ultimately, the more and more Bitcoin they have and the more that Bitcoin appreciates, obviously that's super good for the stock. And MicroStrategy would not have the value that it has today if it did not have the ability to create leverage. It would just be like you would just go buy an ETF. You'd be like, why would I buy MicroStrategy? Because if you're just interested in increasing the amount of Bitcoin holdings that MicroStrategy has, you would only be interested in them just, hey, great, let's go buy some more Bitcoin. How much does the Bitcoin go up by? The reason MicroStrategy is attractive is because they use leverage to acquire more Bitcoin. And so you actually don't want MicroStrategy just using their dollars to actually buy Bitcoin, because if they just use their dollars to buy Bitcoin, they're not different than, it's like you might as well just go buy an ETF. And if you buy an ETF and you compare the performance of an ETF to MicroStrategy over the last year, it doesn't even compare. I mean, MicroStrategy did 350% last year. Bitcoin did 121%. There's no comparison in what the returns were last year. And the reason you can get that with MicroStrategy, and why I believe MicroStrategy will continue to outpace and beat Bitcoin in 2025, is because of its intelligent leverage. And issuing shares is an intelligent way to leverage and get more money to buy Bitcoin. And so we are very, very interested in them continuing to do this, but doing this in moderation. Obviously, when they issue convertible debt, it doesn't put more shares in the marketplace. So the benefit of convertible debt is very different, because let's say I issue 10 more shares, right? 10 more shares gets me more money to buy more Bitcoin, but if I've done a temporary dilution. But overall, I've acquired more Bitcoin. So the margin of like my dilution is this, and my Bitcoin now is up by this as a result of issuing shares, is a good thing. Like you take, like if I'm going to take temporarily what seems like 2 steps backwards to get 10 steps more Bitcoin or 10 steps more ahead, I would totally do it. And that's what Saylor's doing. So you actually want that. Okay. You want the issuance of shares. If you didn't have the issuance of shares like Saylor's doing, you would not see the MicroStrategy price like it is right now over the last year. Okay. So from a time horizon of looking at it months and months and months and over a year, the course of year 2024, you're super happy that he employed that strategy. And in fact, when you look at the announcement of that strategy in 2024 of what Michael Saylor did and the amount of Bitcoin that they bought in Q4, which was like as a result of tapping the ATM, there was over $10 billion bought as a result of tapping the ATM in Q4 alone. Okay. So, and I think it was closer to 15 billion that was purchased as a result. So that strategy alone is what gives MicroStrategy intelligent leverage. MicroStrategy, if you look at the profits they've taken from their company over the years and taken their own dollar just to buy Bitcoin, I think it's about $857 million that the company itself has put in terms of like taking profits from their other company and then reallocating those dollars into Bitcoin. Okay. So that's one way for them to acquire more Bitcoin. But the other ways they acquire more Bitcoin is just the leverage of I'm going to be able to issue shares. And as I issue shares, I'm going to be able to take the money that people pay me and I'm going to be able to buy more Bitcoin. And the reason why it works for us is because people are catching on and they see what MicroStrategy is doing. So the market is paying a premium for the stock and has been paying a premium for the stock for all of 2024, a heavy premium for the stock, meaning paying more for the stock price. So that premium is then taken to buy more Bitcoin. So we love that, to answer your question. Even though in the short term, you're like, they're diluting the shares, Yeah, but they're getting you more Bitcoin per share. And that is why MicroStrategy is valuable, because of that strategy. Now, they're not only valuable because of that, but they are also valuable when they issue convertible debt, which does not dilute the shares. So if I issued 5 more shares in the marketplace, right? And all of a sudden that got me 10 more Bitcoin, even though it doesn't, right? I'm just using a total joke example here of math that makes no sense whatsoever, but I'm just showing you an example. If I issue 5 more shares and I get 10 more or 0.10 or 0.01 of Bitcoin, right? If I get more Bitcoin as a result of issuing these shares, then it's a good thing that's accretive, right? But if I issue 5 more shares, that obviously is going to dilute me temporarily, but still going to get me more Bitcoin. But then I use convertible notes and I borrow money to buy more Bitcoin. That means that the shares are increasing my Bitcoin holdings, and the borrowing of money, which does not dilute shares, increases my Bitcoin holdings. So that means I have more Bitcoin holdings in relation to the shares that the company has actually issued, which is good. And I'm talking about that from the viewpoint of MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy now has more Bitcoin holdings in proportion to the shares that they've issued by a long shot. Okay. So that is super, super good. The FASB will do to the share price. Devin's asking on here on FASB. I mean, they're going to show 12.75 billion approximately of retained earnings after Q1. So I can't imagine that there's not going to be favorable reaction to that news when all of a sudden you come out with, like, in their recent quarterly report, it was obviously not like, wow, this is amazing. But at the end of Q1, then when they report, they're going to report 12.75 billion of retained earnings, which basically retained earnings is you minus out the expenses and you minus out the dividends that they pay, and you're now going to have $12.7 billion on the books. And when you look in proportion to a company that, you know, as MicroStrategy, the software company, does $500 million a year, and then you put $12.75 billion on the books, I think it's going to have a significant view in the marketplace. And I think it will probably catch the view and catch the attention of more traditional investors to look at this thing and go, wow, based on how we would look at companies now, we're going to take a different look at this, because actually in their accounting on the books officially, there's 12.75 billion of additional dollars that have shown up in the retained earnings category. That is huge. See what I'm saying? So we're everything they're doing, like when you look at what they're doing, even though I shared this yesterday, the sentiment is like, damn, they're diluting the shares again. You want them doing that, right? If they didn't come out with their 21 billion plan, which was like 42 billion, to say, I'm going to buy more Bitcoin, their stock never, ever in a million years would have gone up the way that it did in Q4. It just wouldn't. That was such bullish news that we are committed to buying $42 billion of Bitcoin in 3 years. And they emptied half of the coffers in 3 months. $21 billion has already been purchased of Bitcoin from their $42 billion plan. That's huge, man. Huge, right? Or close to 21 billion. So half the plan is already executed in 3 months. That's massive. Okay. Davin, do I think next earnings should be crazy? I do think next earnings should be crazy. I do think it should. Okay. So, so obviously also this has to do with how Bitcoin does, which is the purpose of why I was doing this with you today, to show you the charts and just take a look at, like, is Bitcoin overheated? Is MicroStrategy overheated? Let's take a look at the charts of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's an indicator of what MicroStrategy is going to do as well. But as far as MicroStrategy's strategy, now called, the company's called Strategy, it's super sound, it's super good, and they're not going to be tapping the ATM as much in 2025 because they got 17 or 16 billion left of convertible notes that they need to execute on. And convertible notes are great because they borrow money, and that has no impact at all on the in terms of the shares issued, because you're not issuing shares when you're doing convertible debt. That only affects the share price later when somebody converts the debt into stock 2, 3, 4 years down the road. Then it affects the share value. But when they borrow money, it doesn't affect at all in a negative way what's happening with the shares, because they're not issuing shares when they're doing convertible debt. Make sense? So that's good. And so when they're doing convertible debt, it's actually adding more Bitcoin to the holdings. So any dilution that was done from issuing the shares, which still is accretive, by the way, when they issue shares to buy stock, it's accretive. But now when they do convertible debt, meaning they borrow money to buy more Bitcoin, now you have more Bitcoin in their war chest, which then as a shareholder, you have more Bitcoin. So that's actually helping to increase the Bitcoin per share per se, because they have more Bitcoin in their holdings. And it's also helping to increase the value of the company because they have more Bitcoin in their holdings. And as a shareholder, you're very happy about that. Okay. But absolutely, their strategy of issuing shares and convertible notes throughout the year is one of the reasons why you had a 74% yield last year, with why Michael Saylor reports a 74% yield last year. Okay. And all of that is helping increase your Bitcoin per share, which is very, 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 very good for us. Okay. So that's good news. So back to the charts. All right. If you're just joining us, basically what I'm looking at, what's up, TC? What's up, Devin? What's up, Benjamin? Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin's, somebody's asking, do I think Bitcoin will go lower? I don't have a crystal ball on this. Like, I know it just went lower today because the job market report came out, underreported. They don't report this stuff accurately. The markets still react. They have uncertainty, maybe because it makes the public uncertain. You would think that the markets would just price this stuff in now to know that they don't report the job reports. They don't report earnings properly, or not earnings. They don't report inflation properly. They don't report the job report properly. The data that's being given is just not fully real. It's just not. Okay, it's inaccurate data, and it's skewed and it's swayed however they want to make the report. Like, if you want to present something, you can sway it in a way and go, I'm going to give part of the facts or not the whole story and make the numbers look better. And the market still puts stock in what comes out, and I don't put any stock in it. So long-term, still bullish on Bitcoin, still bullish on MicroStrategy. So let's look at the chart here. If you're just joining us, just write down two things. We're going to look at the 111-day moving average of Bitcoin, and we're going to look at the 350-day moving average of Bitcoin. And this chart has been an indicator in the past to determine tops in cycles. It's not 100% accurate at all. It has predicted certain tops in the Bitcoin cycle in 2021, in 2018, and also 2013. Okay. So we're just going to look at this and just take a look and see what it means. And I'm going to walk you through this right now. Okay. Okay, so here it is. So here's the basic chart, right? And if you look over here to the right, this is the main place I want you to put your attention, to the right. You can zoom in if you want to look at it. So if you look at the 11-day moving average of Bitcoin, it's February 6th. It's actually February 7th today, so it's not updated. But as of February 6th, it's $91,838, okay? Then you look above at this, and you look at the 350-day MA, what does that mean? It means 350-day moving average. So if you look at the real 350-day moving average of Bitcoin over the last 350 days, it's not actually 145,000 like you see, it's 72,000. Okay. So when you see the 350-day moving average here times 2, that means 72,000 times 2, which gets you 145,000. Okay. So basically, if the 111-day moving average, which is 91, this is all you really need to know, is 91,000 right now. That's the moving average, right? The price point you see is 96,635. That's as of yesterday. So if you look at the price, we know that's yesterday's price. If you look at the 111-day moving average, it's about 91, 92. So we kind of been averaging, moving around this area of 92,000 for the last like 3 months, right? That's about the average, okay? And then if you look at the 350-day moving average here, what you're seeing here is basically the 145 price is the real 350-day moving average is $72,000. Okay. But the way this chart works is you multiply the 350-day moving average of 72 times 2, which gives you the $145,000 number. So what does this mean in super, super simple terms? The 111-day moving average at $91,000 or 92 as you see it, if it gets close to that $145,000 price point, it means we're getting to a point where we're getting overheated. And per this chart, it does not look like we're getting overheated because we're far away. The 111-day moving average is far away from the $145,000 average. Does this make sense? So, so is this chart the gospel? Is this the ultimate truth? Is this what's going to happen in the future? No, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But I always think interesting pieces of data to look at how these charts have behaved in the past are fascinating to look at as like, has this been accurate in the past? To say that the 350-day moving average times 2, so 72,000 times 2, you get 145 approximately. And the 11-day moving average. The 11-day moving average is far away from the 350-day moving average times 2. So it does not look like Bitcoin is overheated at all. It looks like there's a lot to go left in the run on this bull cycle. And overall, from a statistical analysis, that looks pretty good. Now, what are the things that you need to know as it relates to what's real about this chart and what's not real? Okay, what's real about the chart that I can share with you is first and foremost, it hasn't been fully accurate, this chart, in predicting every move in terms of a top of the Bitcoin cycle. So you're not going to sit here and rely on this data as like the gospel of how you make decisions. But so it has not been fully reliable. But here's kind of the accuracy. In April 2013, it called the top 4 days early on Bitcoin. So it came within 4 days. It said, hey, the top is here 4 days prior to the top being in the April 2013 bull run. There were 2 spikes in April 2000 in the 2013 bull run. There's one in December as well, and it called the top 5 days after that. So if you were watching the charts, you would see that it was kind of nearing where the 111-day moving average was coming close to the 350-day moving average, and that's what you're looking for. The 111-day moving average is coming close to the 350-day moving average, and it's 2x the 350-day moving average. That's the formula. So when they started to come close, that's when you know it's starting to get overheated per this chart analysis. So in April 2013, there was a top coming. It called it 4 days early. And then in December 2013, it called the top again 5 days after. So it was a little late on it. But if you were watching the chart, you could see the indicators that the top is nearing. Okay. In December 2017, it called the top 3 days early. So it hit it pretty well on time in terms of the top, which is cool. So December 2017, it was pretty accurate. So if you were watching the chart, you would have been like, wow, Bitcoin's overheating. It's getting near a top. It might be a time to actually sell. And so I'm using this from the perspective of looking at it to see might it be a time to take profits. That's it. And as I look at the charts now, I'm like, no, this is not a time for me to take profits in Bitcoin right now. So I'm holding on to my Bitcoin. So So in April 2021, we had kind of like two tops in April 2021. So it wasn't super accurate on that. It called the top 11 days early of April in 2021. And then we had another run up to 69,000 in 2021. And so it was off in 2021 because there was like a double top in 2021. So it's a 4 out of 5 of the major cycles it predicted within a few days of the top. That's the basic on it. Okay, so is it good, and has it historically been good? This chart I just showed you in predicting the tops. Yes, historically it's been pretty good. But would I use it as an indicator to go, we are definitely at the top of the market? I am like where the bull run is over. No, I'm just going to use it as an indicator of like, hey, it looks like we might be getting overheated here, and it may be a time to take some profits. That's how I'm going to use it. I would say it's really good for profit taking signals. This chart that I just showed. But here's why it's not perfect. It did miss the top in 2021. The market is changing. So while this chart might have been reliable in 2013, in 2017, in 2021, the market's changing with the ETFs, with institutions getting involved, and with the idea that historical patterns don't always repeat. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But I always like to use data from the past to at least give me some more certainty in the decisions I make moving forward. And so I thought this was a pretty cool chart to show. So if you're a long-term investor in this, it might be a good indicator, this chart. I'll speak in the first person because this is not financial advice. This is a good indicator, this chart, for me to start taking some profits when it looks like the market is overheated. And so as I'm looking at it right now, if you're just joining us, the market does not look like it's overheated. And so based on the 350-day moving average and the 111-day moving average and the formula that's used in that chart, it doesn't look like it's close to being overheated. So that's my my basic analysis of how I'm looking at 2025 and how I'm looking at when I might do some profit taking. And right now it's not one of those times. So there you have it. And I have also been in MicroStrategy since February of 2024 is when I loaded in. So I've been in this stock for a year now. And for me, it's not a time for me to sell any MicroStrategy at all. I will continue to hold this. And my conviction on that is a couple things aside from this chart. If you're just joining us and you didn't see the chart, I'm going to just share it one more time. Again, this is just a chart. This is just fun to look at data. This is not the gospel. This chart shows as of February, yesterday, the Bitcoin price yesterday was 96,635. It shows the 111-day moving average of Bitcoin has been about 92,000. You'll see 91,838 on this chart to the right. And then you see the 350-day moving average is $145,000. That's a 350-day moving average when you take the actual 350-day moving average, which is 72,000 and change, times 2 gives you 145,000. And that's how you get that number. The whole point of this is to show that when the 111-day moving average, which is 92, starts to get close to that number of 145, it starts to become a potential signal that Bitcoin is overheated and a potential signal that I may use to take profits. And per this chart in particular, if I was just analyzing this chart, I would not be taking profits based on this data. But again, I'm not going to look at just one chart and one piece of technical analysis to make my decisions. I just like extra data that helps reinforce what I want to do. Okay. So with that said, my viewpoint is we're not anywhere close to overheated right now. That's the first thing. The second thing is I'm not taking profits on MicroStrategy at this point because we're at $330 or wherever the stock is today. And I believe we are going to get back up to an all-time high of $540. As for me, it's a definite in terms of the outlook that I have on it, and this is just an opinion, that we're going to get back to that in 2025 for sure. So like, I would not consider taking any profits before we hit the 530, unless of course something radical changes. And then I'm still holding true on the fact that I would like to see MicroStrategy go to 800. And then I also still believe there is a chance in this bull cycle that we could hit $1,000. So I'm still maintaining that as my my baseline of predictions of what I think and believe is going to happen. So putting in some technical analysis is never a bad thing to look at it and see, based on the history, have some of these technical charts been accurate in predicting what might happen with the Bitcoin cycle. And in the past, that chart has been helpful because if one had followed it, they would start to be able to see that Bitcoin is overheated in 2017 and 2021. And if they wanted to, one could take profits and be like, hey, it looks like it's overheated a little bit. I might take some profits off the top of this thing. So as to avoid a run up and a crash down. And I think that's probably one of the main things or considerations that I have in owning Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. And I think that anybody would have, or most people would have, is, do I want to sit through a run up and a run down? And so I'm always looking for data that shows me, hey, we could be overheated. It might be time to take some profits, because I think that's just smart. And what I would do with those profits is not sit on those profits in cash. I would then roll them into another investment that I believe in. And so that's what I'm looking for in 2025. Okay. That's the basic plan. But I thought that was a pretty cool chart. There's some great charts out there. I know there's some people on YouTube that share great analysis as well. And I think it's just important to get as much data as you can, because whether that chart of the past is an indicator of what's going to happen in the future, it is good to look at data of what did happen, because it's better to have data of what has happened versus have no data at all. And to be able to see when a market's overheated, that's a good analysis to have, to say, hey, what kind of decisions do I want to make? I think it's important. So overall, that one little chart is not going to change my entire viewpoint of what I'm doing in 2025. I will continue to maintain my viewpoint based on a stable operating basis of what I operate from, which is really simple. Number one, MicroStrategy owns Bitcoin, and we know that Bitcoin, or at least my opinion, is the most sound financial instrument in the world today. So that's the first stable operating point. Number two is MicroStrategy is employing intelligent leverage to acquire more Bitcoin. And if you looked at the report when Saylor and his team gave it 2 days ago, they did report on the fact that MicroStrategy has used their own money over the years to buy Bitcoin, somewhere close to $1 billion. I think it was like 857 million of their own money, to where the company makes money and they take the company money and they put it into Bitcoin. So they've used their own dollars to put it into Bitcoin. So one who uses their own dollars to put it into Bitcoin has a certain amount of leverage or a certain amount of ability to grow their pile of Bitcoin. That's one way. Then they move on to issuing shares, and that's a second way to grow their Bitcoin pile or Bitcoin treasury. And then three, they move on to convertible debt, where they borrow money, and that's a third way to increase their Bitcoin treasury. And so those three ways are what make MicroStrategy valuable. Period. So when I'm looking at the value of the actual stock and the value of the company, one, do I trust the strategy? Yes, because I trust Bitcoin. Two, do I trust the leader? Yes, because he's stuck consistently to his goals and he's done everything that he says he's going to do, pretty much. And at the end of the day, the plan they came out with to buy 41 billion Bitcoin, they've executed almost half of that plan already. It was a 3-year plan, and it's been done in 120 days, almost half of it. So they are executing intelligent leverage, despite what anybody says about the share dilution. Like you just can't make a case for that's not good, because diluting the shares in a very small amount to acquire massive amounts of Bitcoin in proportion that's out proportion to the dilution of shares, meaning it's out proportion in a good way. It is a very, very good thing. And whether you like how the stock moves temporarily or how it moves sideways over the month or 2 months, in the long run, over this bull run, it's the best damn thing that he's done, is to issue shares to buy Bitcoin. Because if he didn't, and the company didn't, you don't have a MicroStrategy, period. You don't. Okay. It's not as valuable if the company does not do that, because it needs its 3 ways: its own money, borrowing money through convertible notes. Give me some money, I pay you interest, I buy Bitcoin. That's a convertible note. Okay. And then issue shares. I issue paper, you pay me money, I buy Bitcoin. That's what they do. So if you look at a stable operating basis in terms of how MicroStrategy operates, it operates with traditional leverage, because companies do this all the time. And it operates with a non-traditional approach in terms of Bitcoin. So when you add traditional leverage and finance to a non-traditional asset like Bitcoin, you get a totally unique business model. And that's what they've done. So as you look at 2025, they're continuing to do it. They have to empty out 16 billion more of convertible notes from their plan, which I believe is all going to happen in 2025. They have to tap the ATM with 4 billion more to complete their 42 billion plan, which I believe is going to happen in 2025. And they're going to acquire a crap load more Bitcoin. Okay. So as that happens, is that good for the Bitcoin price? And is it good for MicroStrategy? The answer is yes. Okay. Do I think, the question is, do I think MSTU will go beyond $30 this year? Yeah. So MSTU is a 2x version of MicroStrategy. So right now it's at what, $9.50, right? So we're $9.20, whatever it closed at. Holding it long term, it's a short term hold, this thing. So as you hit some, I have some money in it that I've been holding for a couple months. I bought in at a very low price on it, but will I hold it to where I think it could hit 30? I think it could hit 30, particularly if you have a run. Like the negative thing of holding MSTU is that if it goes up and then it goes down a lot, like it resets, that fund resets every day, right? So the goal is to get a 2x of MicroStrategy on a daily basis. That's the goal of the fund. Okay. When you hold it over months and months, you're not actually getting the 2x, right? So when I look at the stuff that I was holding since October, when I aped in it, I bought a whole bunch at $4 or a whole bunch at $5, right? It's now at $9.50. And I bought some, like I told you guys recently, one of my last videos, around $8. Okay. So in terms of buying that, I'm still holding it because I'm still way up, and my returns on that are higher than MicroStrategy. So if I just bought MicroStrategy, my returns would not be as high. I looked at the math, I looked at my account. It would not be as high. So with that, is it 2x higher? No. So the longer you hold something like that, like MSTU, which is designed on a daily basis to get a 2x, the longer you hold it, the more that 2x diminishes over time, especially as you get ups and you get heavy downs. It's harder to catch back up. But do I think it has the opportunity to hit 30 in 2025? I do. I do think it has that opportunity, because if MicroStrategy does a double, I think it could hit a 30. So if MicroStrategy goes from 330, and let's say this happens in the first quarter, okay? Let's say if MicroStrategy, or maybe April, if MicroStrategy goes from 330 to, let's say MicroStrategy goes from 330 to 540 and hits its all-time high again. That's not a double, right? But could MSTU, which is designed to get a 2x, could that go in the 20-something range? Absolutely. Okay. Now, if MSTU then eventually hits, for it to hit 30, I think you would have to see MicroStrategy doubling. Does that make sense? And I think you would have to see MicroStrategy doubling in a short window of time for it to really hit that 30. Meaning like in the next 3 to 4 months. That's my prediction on it. Okay. Just on the basis of how I've seen it move in the past. And really, if I hold it for months and months, it's not really a 2x. It's more like a 1.4x, because we had such a high up and we had such a down and such a down and such a down that it just eroded the returns on it. Okay. Would I recommend that anybody put their money in something like this? No, because I don't recommend any financial advice on stuff. Do I have some of my money in it? Yes. Do I like leverage like that? Yes. Has it been good to me? Yes. Do I have a large percentage of my portfolio in it? No. Is the majority of my portfolio in MicroStrategy? Yes. 60% of my portfolio, 65 is MicroStrategy, including some of MSTU. And is it a fun stock to trade? Yes. Do you have to worry and be concerned about losing money with trading? Yes. Do I think MSTU could win over the next couple months? I do. But I would never, if I didn't know anything about Bitcoin, I would not be getting into MicroStrategy. If I didn't know anything about MicroStrategy, I would not be getting into MSTU. And for those of you who don't know what MSTU is, it's basically an ETF, a fund that was created that is designed on a daily basis to get 2x the returns of MicroStrategy. So when MicroStrategy goes up by 5%, MSTU is designed to go up by 10%. When MicroStrategy goes down by 5%, MSTU is designed to go down by 10%. So it's super, super risky. But to be optimistic on where you're at, I'm with you on that. I ain't selling at 10, and I ain't selling at 15 on that. So do I think it could have a chance to go to 30? I think there is a chance of that. Okay. So there you have it. Okay. Do I think Tesla's going to go up a lot, Benjamin? I do. I do. I own Tesla. Yeah. I mean, I've owned Tesla since 2017. I'm smiling because I've owned Tesla since 2017, and then I rolled out a bunch of Tesla to buy MicroStrategy in 2024. But I still own Tesla, and I've done very well on Tesla. So do I think Tesla is gonna crush? Yes, and I will be rolling profits from MicroStrategy this year back into Tesla. So will I be holding Tesla long term? Absolutely, 100%. Okay. Do I think Tesla could crush this year? Yeah. Do I think Tesla could hit 600 this year? I think absolutely. Tesla could go to over 600 this year. So the technology is just too good. Elon's too good. With everything that's happening with Elon and Trump right now, I just think that the PR for Elon is super good, even though 50% of the people or a majority of the people don't like Elon. Not majority. I think there's a portion of people that don't like Elon, but I think there's a huge percentage of people that love Elon. I love Elon. I think he's amazing, and I think what he's doing is amazing, and I think Tesla's going to crush it this year. So that's why I'm holding Tesla as well. Okay. So yeah. So that is. And I'm not giving any financial advice. Again, showing the disclaimer. I showed it early. It's not financial advice. It's just what I think and how I'm thinking about my portfolio. But I think it's going to be fun, and I'm excited, for the year. And somebody saying I kind of want to go all in on MicroStrategy. That's Benjamin, but it sounds too good to be true. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Like, listen, here's the deal. As I said, I'm waiting for more money to come in from one of my trusts that's about to come in soon next week, and I'm going to be allocating new money into MicroStrategy and Bitcoin. And will I be allocating 100% of my money into MicroStrategy? No, I won't. Okay, so everybody's got to decide on what they want to do with their own money, and you need to decide what's best for you. Okay. I'm just here to give a little bit of data and give a little bit of support. And also, I think it's too late, Benjamin, to buy MicroStrategy at 330 for myself? I don't, because I will be buying it next week. So when my trust money comes in, I'll be buying additional MicroStrategy next week. So, and hopefully it comes in next week. If there's a delay, it'll be the week after. So I'm happy that the price stays around 330 right now, because I'm hoping to pick it up at 330 or lower. So there you have it. Will that be new money? I'll be watching heavily. Yes, because it's new money, and my cost basis for MicroStrategy is super low. I bought it before the stock split. So you can go look up the price of MicroStrategy in February of 2024, and it was very, very low. So, but would I buy it at 330? I will be buying it at 330. So there you go. So hope it serves you. Okay. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm bullish on the stock this year. I don't see any slowing down in Sailor's plans. I don't see any slowing down in the ETFs. The ETFs are still buying. If you look at the marketplace, they're still buying. And I don't see any slowing down in terms of states getting approval in the U.S. And I don't see any slowing down in terms of the U.S. in terms of their viewpoint. I don't think they're going to slow down or pull back on their viewpoint that we are going to be a crypto nation. So with all of that, I can't see why we wouldn't have a good 2025. And there you have it. Hope you guys have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, stay well.